Hello, this is Gareth from the iMoot team. It is my great pleasure to introduce Lewis Carr, who has always been an inspiration for me in his themes, and what he's done is very creative, very different, who's going to be talking today about reinventing and rebooting Moodle. So on behalf of myself and the iMoot team, thank you, Lewis, for spending the time putting together this excellent presentation. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Gareth. And thank you, everybody, for dropping by and watching, whether you're watching this live or in a recording. Appreciate that all the same. So this keynote is really going to focus on rebooting Moodle. So really it's about changing perceptions, it's about changing cultures, and it's about changing people's attitudes to how people think and behave when they, when we're discussing using and even developing for Moodle. So without further ado, I won't read all the text off this slide, but basically the Hollywood film industry likes to reboot its superhero films for a new audience. It likes to do it because A, it can make money, but also it can reinvent itself. Hopefully it can do it better than the last time. And that's what this presentation is all about. In order to meet the needs of the modern learner, we're going to have to reinvent and reboot our Moodle platform to suit this new modern learner. And hopefully by changing what we do with Moodle and how we use Moodle, we can change that cultural perception. If anybody has any questions whilst we're going through this presentation, just drop them in the chat window and I'll be keeping my eye out on those as well. So all heroes eventually become villains. So if we look at these newspaper headlines here from some famous comics, you can see Batman, is he a savior, is he a menace? The public fall out of favor with Superman. Spider-Man, hero or menace, and you can see on the Daily Bugle there, Hulk, rampage. And the reason that this slide's on there is that eventually, people start to fall out of love with Moodle. So, when Moodle first comes on the scene, it's the go-to program, it's the LMS, it's the VLE, and then over time, people eventually start to tire of it, and people's perceptions change. And according to the Daily LMS, which is the #1 selling newspaper for all things Moodle, the headline here is Moodle, Education Savior, or a has-been. And that's something we're really going to explore in this presentation. So all those people that think Moodle's a has-been or maybe considering switching platform, then take note of the next 50 minutes or so, and hopefully we can change your mind and show you some new ways of thinking about Moodle. So how have our perceptions changed? Again, these are fictitious headlines just in here for a bit of fun and just to really carry on with this whole superhero theme. So this headline says, Moodle is clunky, says science teacher. And these are possible phrases that you've heard in your organization or that you've heard people speak about within forums or even in passing. Moodle is slow, says professor. Again, it's one of those things, depends on how your Moodle's configured as to how fast it is, but some people, teachers in particular, say Moodle is slow, and sometimes they're not talking about performance, they're just talking about the hoops that they have to jump through in order to create a specific activity or do something in Moodle, such as enrolling a user. Moodle looks awful, says all, and I think this is quite a common phrase because Moodle has suffered in the past from its visual designs. Things are improving, particularly since Bootstrap, since we've had the wonderful community-based themes such as Essential and the other things that Gareth looks after, and also themes from the Birmingham City guys, the BCU themes and the adaptive themes. They're all heading in the right direction to change that front look and feel of Moodle. We want something new, say students, and this is, again, quite a common thing that I hear in my Moodle discovery. People just like to search for something new, something exciting. We want to be on that next train, on that next wave. So, a few of the main reasons why perceptions change. Novelty factor eventually wears off. Like anything, you get a brand new phone and you think it's the best thing ever, and a year into your contract, you've got a year left on the thing, you're bored of it, you want in the next new phone. We also make comparisons with other websites that we use, so not LMSs, not VLEs, but just standard websites that we're using. So we start to compare some of the functionality that we see in Facebook, that we see in Twitter, Amazon, eBay, even Netflix, and those kind of mass entertainment websites that we now become accustomed to. We've got used to the way that they work and they interface with us. And then we do have this insatiable need, as I said before, to discover something new. It's exciting to use a new tool and a new platform, and not quite as exciting when you are using something that you've been using for the past 10 years. So the moral of this story, the message of this story is, if we don't reinvent our Moodle platforms, they won't be around much longer. Now, that seems quite a harsh statement to make, but actually I'm seeing lots and lots of organizations, particularly in the UK, that are reevaluating their LMS and considering other platforms. And these other platforms could be Canvas, they could be Google Classroom, they could be a whole host of other LMS platforms. But Moodle's certainly got to be looking over its shoulder now, and we've got to do something about that. We can't just rely on HQ. Adding new functionality that's going to suit everybody. There's lots of things we can do internally within our organization. So let's look at how we can start to change this public perception of Moodle. We need to look at how we can reinvent and reboot our superhero. Moodle's a superhero, and we want our hero to become liked again. And there's a whole host of things we're going to do. But I've broken this down into 4 distinct parts of this talk track. The first part is the discovery phase. So we need to discover what it actually is we want to do with Moodle, and what it is that teachers are actually doing on other tools they've discovered. What do our learners want from Moodle? What's going to make us happy? What's going to actually put all these wrongs right? And then we're going to look on phase 2, which is the design. And again, we need to look at other websites for inspiration. We need to look at other platforms. We need to look at what we're actually doing in our daily lives, and then design something that's reflective of the times in which we're living and the technology which we're using. Then we look at developing. So how do we, after we've discovered it and scribbled all these designs down, how do we actually go about developing this? Do we need to be a coder? Do we need to hire a coder? Can we do things ourselves? If you're a Moodle tinkerer and somebody who just likes to play and explore, have you got just enough skills just to be dangerous enough to actually, to bend Moodle a little bit and make it do something a little bit more exciting? And lastly, we've got to deploy this. So it's got to work. We've got to actually get people on board. We've got to get the tutors used to our new way of thinking. We've got to get the students engaging with Moodle. So they're the 4 steps to this process. And I'm going to cover each step as we go along in this talk. So the discovery phase, we need to rediscover our goals and our needs. What is it we actually want to do with Moodle? And when you ask somebody that question, they actually are doing most of what they expect to do with Moodle. They're disseminating learning. They're teaching students online. They're teaching distance learners. Perhaps it's used in corporate training when you're training your workforce. So Moodle is probably doing about 80% of what they want it to do, but maybe it's not doing it as effectively or as engagingly as they want. And we've also got to ask ourselves, are we actually delivering what our learners actually want? How often do we actually ask the learner what their expectations are of Moodle? This is all about changing the culture and not the platform. And again, I've been involved with lots of organizations that are looking to switch platform, are seriously looking to switch away from Moodle and move to another platform. And of the organizations I've seen that have done this switch, they've taken all their bad habits across and ported it to the new platform. So there's been no real significant change in the way that they deliver. So they start to put PowerPoints, PDFs back on this new shiny platform and ignore some of that more enriching functionality. So it's not about just changing platform. This is about changing cultures and about changing the way in which we teach with our online learning platform. So we need evolution and not just a simple substitution. So how do we meet the needs of our modern learner? Who is our modern learner? Well, a modern learner doesn't mean a young learner, although that might be the case for some organizations, but the modern learner is just your average everyday internet user, somebody who perhaps buys some things off eBay, perhaps watches some films on Netflix, perhaps uses Facebook, Twitter, maybe got WhatsApp on their phone. That's the modern learner. That's somebody who's engaging with the technology. They don't have to be able to code or design for it. They just have to be able to use it. I was lucky enough to be part of a project to develop an app where we actually asked some of the students, what they were looking for in their learning platform through an app. And I'm going to share some of those results with you now. Quite interestingly, 92% of the students that were surveyed, we surveyed a whole bunch of students from this one organization, 92% of those surveys take a smartphone to college every single day with them and are prepared to use that smartphone, during lessons, during breaks. 70% of those that responded said they watched online video every single day. And 89% of the people that responded preferred to watch a video rather than read text. Now, these were younger learners at the younger end of the spectrum, I'd say between 16 and 20 years of age. I mean, that may change depending on the age demographic, but I think we can say across the board, we all prefer short amounts of content, less things to read. We do favor watching video rather than reading pages and pages of text. Interestingly, the maximum attention span for watching the videos was between 3 and 4 minutes, and after around that 3-minute mark, most students tend to wander off and go and do something else. So we've only got, you know, a 3-minute window to actually engage them in any sort of video-based delivery. So then when we asked them what they actually want from Moodle, if they could, you know, have a blank canvas and a wish list, and most of the students said all they wanted was simple facts and revision snippets within their course. They didn't want heaps of handouts, heaps of presentations and notes. They just wanted the facts. They just wanted that bite-sized information. They want lots of practice questions, so quizzes is quite important to them. So anything they can do just to test their knowledge, they were interested in having. And also they wanted a chance to discuss and share, an opportunity to feedback. And I think that's reflective of the social world which we live in now. If you just think TripAdvisor, for example, you leave reviews on it. You know, you buy something on Amazon, you might leave a review or add some stars. You putting feedback back into the system, you're sharing things with people. And that's what people expect to do, you know, on all websites, not just on Moodle. So we've got to start asking ourselves, are the way in which we use Moodle and the tools that we're using in Moodle still relevant to online teaching anymore? You know, and for some people, it's a big achievement to, I understand, to upload PowerPoints and PDFs on Moodle, but actually we can be doing so much more. So we've got all these other websites that our learners are using, and these websites have activity streams where information appears in a list. They've got a much simplified user interface, so you know it's much easier to navigate around the site and to actually perform actions on the site. There's a sense of ownership too on the site because you can control the content, you can block things, you can promote things, you can share things. You feel a sense of ownership and control. There's a big personalization element in most websites now. You know, you can change the color scheme of the site you're on. Perhaps you can upload a picture of yourself or even a header, and you can start to personalize, you know, what content's coming through and how you're going to be notified of events. So that whole personalization element's really, really important on any website. If you look again at Netflix and Amazon, it starts to recommend content to you based on things that you like. And then lastly, there's the gamification. You know, if any users are, you know, smartphone users are using apps such as, they're running apps such as Strava or Runkeeper and those kind of apps, they're all gamified where you compete against other people in a friendly way, unlock badges, unlock trophies and awards and things. So this is the world in which we're living. This is fact. This is happening right now, and it's been happening for quite a few years. So when all these sites are offering all this fun engagement, why do we keep serving up courses that look like this? And this screenshot, I think, is typical of most courses. I hope you'll all agree, and apologies to those who are, you know, take offense at this, but you know, for the most part, Moodle courses tend to have groups of resources bundled together under topics, and it's just such a far cry away from the things that we actually use every day. You would not go on Netflix if it looked like this and you had to choose your films just from a list with a tiny little icon next to it, and you'd probably buy less things on Amazon and on eBay if it simply looked like this. And Gareth's just put in the chat death by link, and I think that's quite a true phrase. So we need to really move away from this. We've got to drastically move away from this. And I'm going to talk about ways in which we can, and some really sort of brave and bold ways in which we can, you know, start to do things differently. For me, this is Moodle's greatest weakness. Again, keeping on the whole superhero theme. You know, Superman has got kryptonite, Batman's mortal. You know, Thor can't leave his hammer for so long till he loses his powers. This is Moodle's weakness. This rigid style of teaching in lists and grouping things together is what's really holding things back, and it was fine 10 years ago, perhaps fine even 5 years ago, but it's not fine anymore. You know, we really need to change it. We really need to get away from this mentality. And unfortunately, Moodle's lent itself to this way of delivery. And now most people have fallen out of favor with it and we don't like it anymore. So it's time for something new. We're going to shake things up. So this brings me on to the more exciting part now, the design part. Now, I am part designer, part coder, and design something that I feel quite passionate about. And even if you're not a designer, I think everybody appreciates good design. We appreciate when an app looks nice on our phone, or when the frame of your television looks quite nice, or wherever that actually is, a piece of furniture or even a car. We can all appreciate good design. So this is a quote by the head of product design at Pinterest, so a guy who knows quite a little bit about user interface designs. And he says, design is about problem solving, not about personal preference or unsupported opinion. Design is subjective. You know, some people may like something, some people may not like something. But ultimately, it's about improving what you had before. And that's what better design is all about. It's about looking at the problem, solving the problem, and creating a new solution. And it's an evolving process. So if we look at these Batmans of over the time, you can see that the Batman in the middle, by the way, is just a bit of a red herring. But you can see in the sort of early years of Batman, particularly the Adam West 60s version, you can see Batman's got, you know, he's got underpants on the outside of his tights. He doesn't look like, you know, he'd survive a bullet in the stomach. You know, it's very typical of that era. And you can see then when we move to the Michael Keaton era in like the late 80s, early 90s, Batman became a bit more menacing. His suit became more streamlined. You can see he's got armor on that. The body design changed. Everything changed. And then if we start to look at the Val Kilmer, George Clooney days, you know, not the best Batmans, but you can see they started to really pimp up these bat suits there and add a bit of bling to these things and a bit more whiz bang. And then we move on to sort of the modern end of the Batman. You can see he's much more streamlined, he's much more practical, it's much more plain. And you know, that is an evolving process in design. And, you know, the more you need that man to do, the more you've got to add to his suit, to his utility belt, and all those things. And that's true of any application. If we go back to 2007, I got these images from the Wayback Internet Archive. It allows you to go back in time and look at websites, which is almost like a superhero power in itself. But you can see here, this is the Ryanair website from 2007 on the left, and this is the site from 2015 onwards. It's hard to imagine we were actually, you know, taking sites seriously that looked like the one on the left with the, you know, cartoony buttons and sort of all the clutter and the mess on there. And you can see when they've redesigned this site, they've actually focused on the three core things that the end user wants to do. You want to plan a trip, you want to manage a booking, or get some useful information, and find a flight. You don't need to start looking at hotels straight away. You don't need to start looking in all those other tabs on there, such as car rentals and all those things, because that's not the primary reason for going. So you can see over the time, the website's evolved and become simplified. If we look at this Vodafone website here, I mean, I don't think the design's too bad from 2007, but what's really important to note here is that the big red menu at the top, we've got 7 different options up there, and above there we've got further menus as well. And the search is very small. It's underneath the logo, and you know, there's a lot going on in there. And if you look at the new page in 2015, you can see again they've simplified it to the 3 things that the end user wants to do. They want to buy a phone. If they don't want to buy a phone, maybe they've already got a phone, so they need to get into their account, or maybe they need help with it and they need support. And look how these search boxes move right to the top right, because it's become a prominent feature of any website. We're expected to search. And again, it's just simplified. The message has been simplified. Could not resist putting this slide in. So this is Moodle.org from 2008. Again, you'll see the familiar 3 columns, lots of text, lots of menus, all sorts going on in there. Really confusing, very difficult message. You know, it's lost in translation is what that website's all about. And then we fast forward to the new Moodle website. Again, there's still lots of information on there, but the menu system has been improved. There's a bigger splash carousel on the front page, and again that's subdivided into different options. So when you go in there, you can quickly find the download links, you can quickly find the Moodle docs, the things that people will be going to that site to find. And that's what we need to think about in our design process on Moodle. We need to stop adding things into menus such as links to library pages and taking people to other parts of Moodle. It's too confusing. So I need to just briefly touch on course design versus theme design before we go any further, because they are two completely different things. Course design refers to the way in which we present our resources, our information, and the way those resources are then designed and presented. And theme design is the overall skin for Moodle. So this is a screenshot from Essential. You can see it's got the header, the footer, and the blocks, and there's a big difference between the two. And I'm going to just sort of press on that a little bit more. I did a quick search for commercial themes on Moodle, and there's lots of pretty visual commercial themes out there that you can buy. There's also some free ones in the Moodle.org plugins. And once you start looking at these sites, you can get a little bit excited and a bit carried away thinking, wow, this is going to radically transform my Moodle. Again, just zoom into one of these in a bit more detail. You can suddenly see why people start to get excited and think, well, if my Moodle looked like this, it would be fantastic. We've got nice big images, clear menus, and everything's great. But wrong, because once we go into a sample course, this is what we see. So if we just go back to that thing, that's a commercial theme, pretty front end. As soon as you go into the course, you get the same old Moodle that we've always had. And again, this is one of the reasons people are turning away from Moodle, not because of that landing page and that front screen and that carousel. So I'm going to take a quick look and talk around Google Classroom now. Just to, the reason I'm talking about Google Classroom is because I'm seeing lots of UK organizations actually considering making a switch to Google Classroom, and some have made a switch to Google Classroom. And I've been asking, teachers, professors, excuse me, tutors, why that is. So this is Google Classroom. You can see here when you start, you've got a nice simple home menu. You've got a nice plus sign to create your first class, and you can see clearly who's logged in. And then once you've started to build some courses, you start to see a grid of various courses on a dashboard, and it's quite visual, it's quite attractive, and it's quite nice. And then when we actually go into the course, you can see things are massively, massively simplified, very similar to the examples that I showed you with the Vodafone website or the Ryanair website. The first thing you'll see is the big header at the top. The teacher can actually control that header. They can choose from a preset header, preset image, or they can actually upload their own picture. And that's that personalization, that customization element. You can see the menu underneath where it says Stream Student About. There's just 3 simple things. There's not 50 things with drop-down menus. There's just 3 simple things that you want to do once you're in that course. You want to see your activity stream. The teacher wants to see their students, and the students need to know a little bit about the course and maybe get some resources. So again, big, colorful, customizable headers, minimal navigation. Google also uses enrollment codes, so you can send a student a code and they can self-enroll in the course. Now, Moodle's been doing this for many years, but it's one of those options that's buried away and not many people use. And the activity stream is very similar to what we see on LinkedIn and what we see on Facebook and other platforms as well. And it's a different way of, it's a different approach to delivering e-learning. But a new theme does not build better courses, and we need to rethink our delivery, because whilst we're still subjected to Moodle's grid-like structure and behavior, we're never going to move towards that Google Classroom model of delivery. This is a quote from somebody who uses Moodle quite a bit. He says, stream, scrolling content, and search are the best ways to deliver content on the web. Think Twitter, Facebook, eBay, and LinkedIn. And who said that? Oh, I said that. And in brackets, I put somebody who gets tired of people moaning about scrolling in Moodle. The scroll of death is, I think, the single most biggest complaint, in Moodle history. And I don't understand it. It's something I don't understand, because on WhatsApp, I scroll down to read all my messages. In email, I scroll to read my emails. On Netflix, I scroll left and right, up and down to see different film covers. Amazon, eBay, I scroll on Twitter, I scroll on LinkedIn, and we've just got so used to scrolling. We even know anybody who's a big Twitter user, you start at the top and you start to scroll down. Once you start seeing the tweets that are familiar, that you've read, you're programmed to remember that, and you kind of stop there. And the next time you go on, you start to read the news stream, and once you start to get to where you think you were left off, you get used to working in that fashion. And as Kim's put in the chat, it's become the norm. Scroll's not a scary thing, and even more so with search. Things getting pushed down to the bottom of the list, it's not an issue like people think it is. So let's go on to the development. So we've looked at some of the ways, which Google Classroom decides to lay out a course and also do that delivery. So let's look at how we develop something like this ourselves. So I use a tool called Mockups just to do drafting. I draw things in Photoshop, or I'll scribble things down on a piece of paper. But if you want to do something a little bit more rapid, there's lots of tools out there. Mockups.com is just a tool that I use just to prototype simple layouts. And anybody can do this. You don't need to be a designer. You don't need to be, a coder. You just need to be someone who's a bit passionate about doing something different on Moodle. You can see here I've borrowed lots of elements from Google Classroom, and I was thinking about a big header at the top. A nice simple link to the dashboard, a nice simple link to create a new course, my profile picture so I can see that I'm logged in, a big button that would link to me to add students, my resources, and a stream. I was speaking to some teachers and asking them what was the appeal with Google Classroom, and one teacher said to me, you can enroll your own students, you can invite students. And I said, well, you can do that on Moodle. She says, well, we can't. And just simple things like that. This lady didn't know if she could enroll students because the Moodle administrator has been the one who's been enrolling them. And she saw Google Classroom as a big time saver for her. So she could control, not only the content, but also the learners. And the lady next to her said, and we can also create our own classes on Google, whereas we can't do that on Moodle. And again, my reply, being a Moodle administrator, is, well, you can have roles and permissions so you can create your own courses. But in that organization, that's not encouraged. However, if the organization moves to Google Classroom, that is encouraged. So again, it's a cultural change. We need to make people aware of this change. With just CSS, we can actually, CSS is a style sheet. It's just a way to make Moodle look pretty, but you can see the list on the left-hand side. With just some simple style sheets, you can start to make this look a little bit like a newsfeed, a little bit like an activity stream. And again, if this is as far as you went and you just made your resources look like activity streams, teachers could move them to the top of the list. You could highlight them, you could make them a focus featured topic, and it could very much behave like a social media platform. For those of you who have got access to your Moodle server and can install plugins, so people not on a SaaS model, but particularly self-hosters, there's a fantastic plugin called Social Wall by Chris Kerinberg and Brian and Andreas, and it basically turns Moodle into Facebook. I'm not sure if anybody's used this or installed this yet, but it really is quite fantastic. It gives you the opportunity to post updates to your course and quickly add activities and resources. So it's very much in keeping with the way in which we use LinkedIn and Facebook. So content starts to appear for the students within a stream. So when you need to update them about something or post an assignment, you simply add it to the stream and the student just finds that in the stream. But there are also other blocks that you can use just in core Moodle. So if you're on Moodle Cloud or something where you can't turn it into a social platform, there are other things such as the comments block, and there's also the recent activity block. And if your theme supports center position of blocks, where you can actually move blocks into the middle and not just on the left and right, then you can start to actually have a social activity stream in the middle of the course, and you can actually have the comments box either above it or below it. So you can slowly start to move towards a social model. Global search in 3.1 is the new superpower. I see this as a real game changer in Moodle, and the reason being, it allows us to not only search, within our course resources, but search across the entire site. But I think what it does now is it allows us to actually move content about. Content doesn't have to sit in the same place because we can search for it. I mean, any website has a search on it these days, and it's one of the first things we do. We reach out for a search when we're trying to find something. And again, it should be something that we do on Moodle. Moodle Core's got self-enrollment keys, so you can use self-enrollment, very similar to Google. And there's also a plugin called the Coupon plugin, which allows you to create voucher codes, if you like, that you can enroll students on courses as well. So you can start to, use some plugins or even core tools to emulate some of the things that, say, Google Classroom and some of the newer learning platforms are using. This is a screenshot from a theme called Snap. This is developed by the guys at Moodle Rooms. And this is just a nice grid format. It's like a dashboard, really, that you can pull down from the site. And it brings up the name of the teacher, the picture of the teacher, the course image, the course summary file image, and any notifications and things can appear on there as well. So those elements that are in Google Classroom are actually in some community-supported plugins as well. So if you're not a coder and you're not a developer and you're looking for ways in which you can, ramp up your Moodle, these are some of the tools that we can use. Also, changing the language pack is a really good start. I mean, Google calls courses classes, and I speak to a number of people that actually say, well, Moodle's all about courses, and this isn't really a course in the traditional sense. And we don't really deliver courses, but Moodle calls it courses. Well, let's change it. Let's not call them courses. We can call them classes. We can call them modules. You can call it anything you like. If the word students doesn't work, you can rename them learners. It doesn't have to even be called Moodle. A quiz doesn't have to be a quiz. It could be an exam. It could be a test. You could spell enroll with one L or two L's. A little bit of a joke there for anybody who's been on the forums lately. Again, the My Moodle page or the dashboard, you can customize every bit of Moodle without knowing any code, just to make this a little bit more modern and a little bit less Moodle-y. A couple of other plugins that I'll just mention before we go on to actually, turning Moodle completely social. The Level Up plugin is a fantastic plugin for gamification, if anybody's seen that. And also there's a really good block called Grade Me, which shows all outstanding grading that needs to happen, and you can put that on the My Moodle page so teachers can see what needs grading across all their courses. Again, another feature that's in other LMSs and not being in Moodle, but it is something you can get in your Moodle. So let's start to look at the deployment now. So this is getting towards the crux of the presentation, and this is where I really would like to shake things up now and really start to change people's perceptions, of Moodle. I'm just going to read some of the comments in here. So some people said they didn't like the Facebook module. It needs to mature a little bit, but it's a good start. And then Christine says, my biggest peeve is network servers. I change that all the time. Where it actually shows an HTML block with an image and just put the link in there. Yes, that'd work. I mean, you can create HTML blocks, and you can make the block sticky, which means they'd appear on multiple pages, so you don't have to manually add them to each course. So let's start to look at this deployment seriously, and let's really start to think about changing Moodle and really mixing things up. So I would start with a blank canvas on Moodle. And really look at simplifying the whole experience with a simple logo in the header, and then a really simplified menu. And again, borrowing things off Google Classroom quite a bit, but you can see, add a new class. I would give power to the teacher to create as many courses they want and put them in control of that. That sense of control, that sense of ownership, I think is what is needed. So if a teacher needs to create a course, a one-off course, let them create a course, let them upload a picture, let them take ownership of that area. Let's look at giving them a way to upload a file. Now, the course summary file in Moodle can be made to appear in a theme. You have to do a little bit of development here, but again, let's allow the teacher to put whatever header they want up there. Let's release some of those controls and allow them to change that picture. I would start then with the course title, just in the very in the header in there, just to make it really simple, so learners know what course they're actually on. And a really simplified menu for teachers. What are the three things that a teacher wants? They want to get access to the list of their students, or indeed enroll students. They'd like to see their grades, and they probably like to see their reports again. And this is just from my own experience. Everybody's probably different, but find something that fits your organization. But other than that, we don't need any extra confusion, any extra clutter on this site. We don't need countless drop-down menus. Perhaps we don't even really need to see a picture of ourselves to know we're logged in, because we know we're logged in, we know it's us. Do we really need to see a picture of ourselves? Anything else you can just bundle in a menu at the top somewhere for quick access. But really we need to focus on the actual course itself and anything that simplifies that course experience. And then I would look at putting that global search box predominantly on the page. Again, if you're building your own theme, then obviously you could do that. And if not, don't worry, you can add the global search as a block to the left-hand side of your course. So you can still have global search and you can still make that look quite pretty. And then let's consider the blocks we're going to put on this site. Do we need the calendar block? I'm not a big fan of the calendar. I love the upcoming events block, but a little block that shows me the days of the week on the calendar, just I don't really get that anymore. I don't really see that on many other sites. So it's a block that I happen to turn off. Again, if you're not using network servers, turn those blocks off. Get rid of all that functionality and just put the blocks on that actually people want to use, and turn everything else off in Moodle. If you're using enrollment codes, then put it as an enrollment code within that course. Put it as a HTML block or something like that to make it easier for the teacher. Moodle's good at also, there's some blocks that allow you just to show all resources or all activities on a course, and I would make those more predominant. I would really make those so the student can click on that and it will list everything they need, because we're moving towards a social model here. Things are going to get buried in a stream. And then they add an activity and add a resource. Ideally, I'd turn that into a big button at the very top of the page. So then it's dead easy for somebody to add some content. Now, I'm not looking at the social wall format here. I'm just looking at things you can actually do in Core Moodle, and how I envision Moodle of the future. And if I was starting from scratch or really trying to reinvent and reboot and kickstart an organization, I would be saying to teachers, look, we're going to start from scratch. And I know this is a scary concept. You don't want to start from scratch, but actually a blank canvas, no pun intended, is the way to go. And we're going to actually treat Moodle in the same way in which you treat your LinkedIn, or the same way in which you treat your Facebook or your Twitter. When you want to tell the class something, share it on your wall and just publish it that way. Stop worrying about populating all the course before the start of term. Let's stop thinking about topics. Let's stop thinking about modules. Let's stop thinking about conditional release and all those other things that seems to overwhelm some people. Let's look at playing this day by day, really, really simple. And what I'd say to a teacher is, you've just delivered your presentation, you've just delivered your class, whatever that is, just post it onto your wall. And this is just a single topic. I've set topics to 0 on this. There's no 10 topics or 52 topics. It's just one big topic. And I've just added a resource, which happens to be an assignment. Now that's gone into that stream. And then what happens is you add something else and then just move it up to the top. Just, you've gone to the effort of adding it. Just leave editing turned on and drag it to the top. And now I want my students to watch a video. And that's it. And slowly over time, this course will build up. It takes the pressure off building courses. I believe students would be used to this method. I think they'd get on board with this method. I think this whole stream thing is here to stay. I can't see that going anywhere in a long while. And I know if I was learning on this site, I would go back onto the site, see something new in my feed. I'm more likely to click it. I'm more likely to watch it, and then it'll push down the stream, as I'm going. Now, I can hear some academics and teachers saying, well, this is nonsense. This is absolute nonsense. If I put all my resources in one topic, it's going to be an endless scroll. Students aren't going to find anything. So then we look at using tags. Moodle supports tags, and you can tag resources. And what I would be doing when I'm creating the resources, adding a tag to the subject or to the module in which it belongs. So for example, if that English homework that I've uploaded belongs to the English topic, I'd tag it with the word English, and then I'd upload a maths resource and tag it maths, and then I'd build up a tag cloud. On the left hand side there's a block in Moodle where you can add tags, and it creates a tag cloud. And if anybody wants to find any assignments, you just click on assignments and it'll show all your assignments. If you click on videos and you've tagged it video, it'll show all the videos. it'll show all the resources, all the PowerPoints, and you start to use the power of tagging. So we stop thinking about building courses in the same way we've always built Moodle, and we just put something on the screen, we tag it, and we can search for it. And that's what we do on any other website. That's what we do. Think about the experience when you go onto, you go onto Amazon, you're looking for a product. You wouldn't start just clicking around. You probably just got jump straight into the search and see what comes back. And that's, something we've got programmed to do, and something we've got used to doing. Now, I believe a course delivered in this way, and again, this is a combination between theme design and course design, but it's the best of both worlds. I believe that a course delivered in this way would be, far more beneficial to learners. And then just checking in the chat here, so someone said fixing the content on top. Well, you're the teacher, you can drag things around in the top. I mean, if you add that activity to the top anyway, when you turn editing on, add an activity, it will appear at the top by default. And you can also click the little highlight option in Moodle as well, which could put it in a little box, maybe put a blue border around it, so that's what students are, you want the students to be looking at. And don't worry too much if content's going down the list. Again, scrolling is something we do. We can find it with search. We can find it with tags. We don't have to group things together like we've done before in that big list death by resource clicks way in which we've always done things. And I know this is quite controversial, but I think I have to be. And I think, I think we need to rethink this. And I think, the other way is dying. And this is, this is a way which I would use if I was in an organization. I'd be really seriously looking at this, or even a derivative of it that might work with my staff. But I think this doesn't fit an existing course. I think the way existing courses have been built will not transfer to this method, because suddenly you'd have a pre-populated stream, not a stream that built up over time. And also it's a different mentality. It's a different way of working. You don't set all your assignments up in advance. You don't set up all your resources in advance. You do them ad hoc. You do them as and when your students need them. And the great thing about using this model is, if I was teaching in a classroom and I wanted to go off tangent, I thought about some new concept or a new way of explaining it, I would just start talking about that concept in class. Now in Moodle, if you've delivered in a Moodle course online and you've got something you want to get across to those students, where do you put that message? Do you put it in a forum? Do you put that as a PDF, a Word document? How will they see it? What's going on? But if you could just put that in your stream, such as watch this television program tonight and we'll talk about it tomorrow, it appears in the stream, could just be a simple label. And again, students will get used to seeing it. It's about inspiring a new way of thinking, a new way of doing things. So I'd encourage people, if you are doing this, to stop using topics and weeks. Let's just stop doing that. Let's just really have topics set to 0, and we'll just dump everything in one stream and see how we go. And then we tag things instead. So Christina's just asked, not working with groups and groupings to keep things simpler. No, because in all honesty, Christina, people are saying, "Oh, groups is too complicated. Grouping's too complicated." If you're that way inclined and you're a good Moodler, then things like group and groupings don't phase you. It's something you would do. And if you add groups and groupings to this course format, to this social format, then your course will be even better. But this is for those learners that are actually saying, do you know what? I'm sick of Moodle. I've seen Edmodo. I've seen Google Classroom. I'm going to go off and be rogue and do my own thing, because this is simpler. This is easy to add content. So again, if they want to use groups and groupings, let them do it, but they don't need to do. And then I would just turn everything else off in Moodle. If there's quiz questions that are not being used, turn them off. If there are reports that people don't use, turn it off. If you can turn things off in roles and just reduce the clutter on the screen and really take things back to a simplified Moodle, then that's where I would do. Anything that's pointless, I just completely turn it off. And then if people want it, then it's easy to turn things on and introduce things. I'd also let go of all admin control, most admin control. So I would let teachers do pretty much anything on the system other than actually trashing it. So if they want to create a course, let them create a course. If they want to create a user, let them create a user. Give them roles to actually create a manual student account so they can quickly set one up, give it a username, a password, and enroll it on their course. All those things are what people, what teachers are asking and wanting to do, and they can do this on other platforms. They've been able to do this on Moodle for ages, but Moodle admins just don't want to hand over that control to it. And why not? It's a new way of thinking. So we've got to do everything new, not just the way in which we deliver courses. So after all this, and we've done the reboot, we've done the relaunch, will it actually work? Well, I guess only time will tell on this. I'm trying to create more of a pedagogical change rather than just this is a new Moodle theme. I'm really trying to look at ways to shake up the way which we teach on Moodle. And there's been some fantastic efforts already made, particularly with those plugins and things, and some of the core functionality that Moodle's got, which just feels a bit disjointed. It all needs pulling together. And will we change perceptions? Well, I'm not sure. I could be, shot down in flames on Twitter for doing this presentation, or perhaps there'll be some people agreeing with some of it. And to be honest, as long as people are thinking about some form of change, then I think I've done my part. And then we go back and we'd ask people what they think of Moodle now. Let's pretend Moodle's a new product, and we say to them, look, we've got this fantastic new learning platform. Have a look at this. And if you did reskin it and you did attend that model, people wouldn't even believe it was Moodle. And we might be getting some of these headlines back, such as "This is a slick LMS," says student. "Course building is so easy," says tutor. That's one I think I'd like to hear. "Simple, relevant, and social," say all. And I think that's quite a good closing slide. Really, it's about simplifying it, making it easy. We want you to just add a content, drag and drop it onto the page, and then log off and go do something else. And when you want to add something with your students, again, log in, add it, and away you go, just like you do on any other website. And then lastly, Moodle is here to stay. Obviously, I'm really passionate about Moodle. I want Moodle to stay around, and it is going to stick around. And there's plenty of investment in there, and there's plenty of development, and we've got the Moodle Association. We've got all these fantastic things, but actually internally within organizations, things are a bit fractured. People are going rogue. People are going off and finding their own tools and resources. And I'm trying to say, look, stop that. Let's have a look at what Moodle can actually do, and let's look at new ways in which we can use it. So hopefully Moodle is here to stay. That's the end of my presentation. So I've just left 10 minutes at the end in case there's any questions. If anybody wanted to grab the mic, if anybody wants to, put some things in the chat, good or bad. If people think it's crazy, then tell me. If people think it might work in their organization, that'd be great. If people say it would never work in my organization because my teaching staff just wouldn't get on board with it, and also I'd like to hear that as well, because these are just ideas, just really to start a discussion, to get people thinking about using it in a different way. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll take any questions that anybody's got.
Hi Lewis, it's Gareth from the iMoot team. Just while people are writing in the chat, I can just say, wow, I'm absolutely speechless. Not really what to say. There's so much there, lots of notes of food for thought. Wow, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the presentation. Yeah, please do ask in the chat.
Thanks, Gareth. So I'm just looking in the chat just while people are still on here. So Kim just said it's very limited by admin control at my institution. I think that's true in every institution. The Moodle admin, is somebody who's quite protective over the thing they've built or they're in charge of. But there are definitely certain roles and permissions that they could change on Moodle just to make their life a little bit easier, and obviously make the lives of the teachers easier as well. Let's have a look here. Someone's mentioned SSO as well, single sign-on, I presume that is. So yeah, obviously single sign-on does make things easier. But again, there are plugins and tools for Moodle that allows you to sign on with your Google login or with your Facebook login. And again, institutions like to tie things to Active Directory, and we like all this kind of thing, but it's still a little bit disjointed from from what we actually do in the real world when we do sign on with things with our Google and Facebook credentials. We should be considering it at the very least, and not just thinking everything has to go through this this formality. I mean, I'm a fan of people using Google Docs and Dropbox and all those things in their teaching, and it's just a way to pull it all together. Miriam said, my experience is that organizations don't listen. They do their thing, lock them up for nobody to touch. Yeah, that's very true. It's very difficult to teach an old dog new tricks. You know, I've done lots of Moodle training where I've gone into organizations and I've said, look, let's forget everything you know about Moodle. Let's look at this. And people say, it's the most dangerous phrase in the English language, but we've always done it that way. And I think if that's the mentality of some people, that's the way they've always done it, that's what they're going to do, then it's very difficult to change that perception. I think, you know, starting new and just trialing it with one course may be a way forward. And Ben said it's quite easy to give local control to course themes and topics, so why not? Yeah, exactly. So, you know, you could offer different course themes for different courses, allow the teacher to actually choose the theme as well. Interesting comments about the social wall, you know, because it is more of an experiment, but it is a fantastic course format, as all the, you know, a great admiration for all the course formats on Moodle.org. But a lot of these things you can do without formats and without plugins. You know, just reusing the way we use topics, you know, is one way, and turning off all the blocks and adding the comments block. You know, just those three things could radically change the way in which we deliver with Moodle. And I suppose you could even, you know, if you have got teachers that do use conditional release and release things in date, then, you know, again, it's you could still apply that to this model and release things, you know, for particular learners or on a particular day. You know, it's entirely up to you. Eric's just mentioned Moodle Cloud for experimentation and admin access. I think definitely I'd encourage everybody to have a look at Moodle Cloud, you know, particularly just as a sandpit, really, just to look at different ways in which you can do things. You know, it's an opportunity to start a fresh course, a blank canvas. If it works, you could always bring it into your own Moodle site, but you could certainly start playing with, you know, different ways to display and deliver content. And other platforms are offering this as well. You know, all the competitors, if you like, are offering you know, an opportunity for teachers to have, you know, a free classroom forever. I know Canvas do this, obviously. Google don't do this, it's tied to the institution, but some other platforms are offering this, you know, as MOOC platforms or individual small teaching spaces, you know, exactly for that reason. And I think when more and more of these crop up, and when a teacher can actually say, well, you know what, I can have this course for free, I can do what I like on this, you know, they do tend to go off and do their own thing and try find new tools and introduce new tools. Yeah, decision makers need to see it first. That's true. Unfortunately, sometimes you've got to, you know, convince the powers that be that, you know, this is a good idea. But I've always found just, you know, starting just with one small course and some willing guinea pigs, some willing volunteers is a nice way to, you know, to show it works with a real course. I mean, ideally, what would be great is if somebody would test the social, a social way of delivery, get some reports from it and compare it to the way in which, you know, the engagement or even the hits that their old course was getting before they switched to a social model. And then you've got evidence then to actually take to the decision makers and say, look, we think this might be a winner or not.
Okay, I think, guys, we have to give it a halt there so we can go on to Fred Dixon's next Big Blue Button session. I'll stop recording now.